Remember, there are two different divisions of communism, and there always have been. It's always been the case. There are the elite communist scum. Those are the ones in government and the bureaucracy, the judges, the professors. They're not true believers generally, but they're the ones who actually hold power. And then there are street communist scum. You see them all over America today. The LGBTQ rally and the climate change rally and the Black Lives Matter rally and the hate all the Jews rally or whatever. They're all the same people. Communist street scum. They are true believers. They both have roles to play. Critically important roles to play. They work with each other. Oftentimes there is tension between the two groups. After all, the true believers will have demands of the elites, but the elites don't share the belief, and that creates tension, and we'll get to that in a little while, but they do work with and for each other. What do the elites want? What do they really want? What do the Chuck Schumers of the world want? Well, they want money. They want power. How do you get that money and power if you're Chuck Schumer? Well, one of the oldest ways to do this, if you don't have a soul, is you find a way to hurt your enemies or intimidate your enemies. But Chuck Schumer can't do that himself. He's a useless, weak old man. He would never risk getting his hands dirty, but Chuck Schumer knows he doesn't have to do that. He has an army of street animals out there waiting. So if, let's say, you want the Supreme Court to stop you from destroying the Constitution, if you're Chuck Schumer, you don't have to show up at Brett Kavanaugh's house with a gun to assassinate him. You just have to give this speech, and you know orders will be followed.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price. You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions.
About 5 minutes later, a communist street animal from California loaded his weapons up and flew clear across the country and was caught, praise God, outside of Brett Kavanaugh's home, getting ready to shoot him in the face. Elite scum give the orders. The street scum acted out. But what do the street scum get out of all this? After all, it seems like they're pretty put upon. They just have to follow Chuck Schumer's orders. No. The elite scum have a role to play in this too. The elite scum have power, real power. What is real power? What does that mean? The protection of the law, the justice system of a nation. The justice system of a nation is where the real power lies. After all, when you control who can remain free, who doesn't remain free. I mean, you have the power to execute people when you control the justice system. You have all the guns, you have the cops, you have the judges. The justice system is where the power lies. Well, the elites, they will provide the legal protection for the streets to do what they do. A lot has been made about this Merrick Garland testimony and how ridiculous it is, but really the ridiculousness of it was the point. What was Merrick Garland really saying when he gave this testimony in front of Congress? He wasn't saying that they really don't have the ability to track someone down if they're committing a crime at night. No, it was not what he was saying. What he was saying was he was telling the street animals that if they continue to carry out their orders, that he will conveniently be unable to track them down.
I will say you're quite right. There are many more prosecutions with respect to the blocking of the abortion centers, but that is generally because those actions are taken with photography at the time, during the daylight, and seeing the person who did it is quite easy. Those who are attacking the pregnancy resources centers, which is a horrid thing to do, are doing this at night, in the dark. We have put full resources on this.
It's laughably ridiculous, but understand what he's actually saying. He wasn't talking to you. He wasn't talking to me. He wasn't talking to Congress. He was talking to the street animals. He was letting them know, hey, just wear a mask. Maybe wait till after dark, and we'll just be unable to track you down. Dang it, we did the best we could. They have critically important roles to play. They work with each other. They help each other to burn down America. The elites, in the end, they will receive all the money and power and all the things that come from burning down a country and looting it. The streets, in the end, won't. They'll all be thrown in prison or shot like they normally are, but they think they'll get something out of the deal. And they'll just keep following orders, though, and they'll keep following along as these dirtballs in office use words like genocide to gin up outrage.
If you want to know what an unfolding genocide looks like, open your eyes. It looks like the forced famine of 1.1 million innocents.
We should not have to tolerate anti-Semitism or bigotry for all Jewish students, whether they are pro-genocide or anti-genocide.
Genocide. They love that word. It's not just something they come up with recently. They use it all the time. Genocide this and genocide that. That sounds really scary. Joining me now, James Lindsay is going to explain some of this language to us, as he always does with his books and everything else. In fact, his book, The Marxification of Education, probably one you should pick up. I mean, he writes all of them, but for this topic, yeah. James, why do they love words like genocide? Genocide's a pretty big deal, and yet they use it all the time. Why?
Because it's so evocative. It's so powerful. Who could be possibly in favor of a genocide? So if they can convince you that something's a genocide, you have a lot of things going on all at once. We have to resist a genocide with all possible force. We have a moral duty, a moral obligation to get involved against a genocide and to take the correct side on that kind of a thing. But you're right that they overuse the word. I mean, I also left out, by the way, the iron law of woke projection, which is that they say that the other side is doing what they're actually doing or defending. But just to your point that they overuse the word genocide, I want to remind you and all of your viewers that the idea of getting in shape, losing weight, eating a better diet is characterized in the same bodies of literature as a fat genocide, because it will destroy the culture of fat people. So, I mean, this is a word that they use and have used for a long time. And so losing weight is a fat genocide. Curing people who have hearing problems is a deaf genocide. I'm not kidding. They say that it destroys their culture. So they like to overuse that word in the most preposterous of ways. But the reason is because it's so evocative and such a big deal and forces a moral obligation onto their side.
James, there's something you talk about a lot. I try to focus on it as much as possible too, is the words, the language they use. They're so purposeful about them because everything is based on deception, right? Everything has to be a lie to try to shade what is real. They are so purposeful with how they use words and how they use terms. We are not, and honestly, it fails us a lot.
Yeah, we're really kind of sloppy about how we use words, and they're not just intentional with their language. Like you said, their language is coded. They're quite explicit about this. I'm reading a book right now that's not really related to this, but of course it's woke, so it's related to this. It's called Critical Constructivism by an educator named Joe Kinchelow, and he's very clear that the practice of critical constructivism involves the practice of using coded language. And so they rewrite the meanings of words. The saying that I often give is that I've borrowed from somewhere is that communists share your vocabulary, but they don't share your dictionary. They repurpose words to mean something slightly different. So in this case, what genocide means is that you are doing something that stops them from having their way. And it doesn't even have to involve people dying, as a matter of fact. While that is the case to some degree in Gaza, it's not the case in the fat genocide that people losing weight actually kills anybody. It can just be destroying a culture. In this case, we have to ask, though, if we take their word at face value, which we never should, because every communist term conceals an agenda, what's the people group being genocided here? Is it Hamas, which is a stated terrorist organization? That doesn't seem like the genus that usually attaches to genocides.